I looked at my son, the boy I had once rocked to sleep, the boy who used to clutch my hand crossing the street, the boy who had whispered "I love you, Mom" after every scraped knee and broken toy. That boy was gone. In his place sat a man hardened by something I could not yet name, a man with a face set like stone and a heart I could no longer read. We drove past houses I knew, streets I had walked all my life, but they blurred like shadows. My hand shook in my lap. "Why are we doing this now?" I whispered. "Because waiting gives people ideas," he muttered. "The accounts, the house, the savings, they need to be secured before anyone else tries to claim them." I swallowed hard. "But those things, they were your father's. They are mine now. We can talk about it later, as a family. Not like this. Not today." His voice rose. "Later? No, Mom. Later is too late. You sign everything now." The car turned onto the main road. My chest tightened as I realized this was not a misunderstanding. He wasn't taking me for safety. He wasn't thinking of my comfort. He was thinking of control. I pressed my back into the seat and felt the leather cold against me. "Do you hear yourself? Your father isn't even in the ground for more than an hour, and you're dragging me to a bank." He did not flinch. This is what he would have wanted. My breath caught. "No. Don't you dare speak for him. Your father trusted you. He trusted all of us. He would never have wanted this." He didn't respond. His eyes fixed on the road, his jaw tighter than ever. The bank loomed in the distance, its glass windows shining in the fading light. I had been there many times before with my husband. We had opened our first savings account there. We had paid for our mortgage there. Every visit had been filled with the quiet pride of two people building a life together brick by brick, dollar by dollar. But today, the building looked like a fortress. A trap. My son parked and stepped out quickly, slamming the door. For a moment I thought of staying in the car, refusing to move. But then he opened my door with a sharp jerk and leaned in close. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," he said. His voice was cold, almost a stranger's. I stepped out, my legs trembling beneath me. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The smell of polished floors and paper filled my nose. Customers glanced at us, then looked away, sensing the storm that followed in our footsteps. We walked to the desk. My son's voice turned smooth, almost rehearsed, as he spoke to the clerk. "We're here to access my father's accounts and transfer ownership to my mother's name. Then she'll sign them over to me." The clerk blinked, startled. She glanced at me, then back at him. "I'm sorry, sir, but these things require verification and time. It cannot all be done at once." His eyes narrowed. "We'll wait." I felt the blood drain from my face. My mouth opened, but no words came. The clerk looked at me, her expression softening. "Ma'am, are you sure you want to proceed with this today?" Her words struck a chord. Did I want this? Could I allow this? I turned to my son. His gaze was sharp, demanding. "Yes," he said quickly, before I could answer. "She's sure." In that moment, I realized something terrible. My grief had blinded me to the truth that had been building for months, maybe years. My son was not here to help me. He was here to strip me of everything my husband and I had built together. And worse, he thought he could succeed because I was weak. Because I was grieving. Because I was alone. But he had forgotten one thing. A mother may bend. A mother may break under the weight of loss. But a mother does not surrender so easily. The clerk slid papers across the desk. My son's hand hovered over them, ready to push them toward me. I stared down at the lines of ink, the spaces where my name should go. My hand trembled as I reached for the pen. I could hear my husband's voice in my memory, deep and steady. "Never sign anything you don't understand, love. Never let anyone force your hand." Tears welled in my eyes. I looked at my son, my boy, my betrayer. And I whispered, "Why are you doing this to me?" His answer was short, sharp, final. "Because everything you have should be mine." At that moment, I did not sign. I pushed the papers back, stood tall despite the ache in my bones, and said words I never thought I would have to say to my own child. "No. Not today. Not like this." His face twisted in anger. But I knew, deep inside, this was only the beginning of a battle I had never imagined I would fight. If you think what he did at the bank was the worst betrayal, wait until you see what happened next. The choices I made that day changed everything, and the truth that came after nearly broke me all over again. Stay with me, because what unfolded in the next scene will leave you speechless. The papers lay on the table between us like a silent threat. The clerk shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. My son's hand pressed harder against the documents, pushing them closer to me. "Sign them, Mom," he ordered. His voice was firm, his eyes unyielding. I froze, staring at the black lines where my signature should go. The pen in my hand felt heavier than stone. It was not just ink that he was asking me to spill. It was my entire life, the roof over my head, the savings my husband and I had built over decades of hard work. The walls of the bank seemed to close in. I could hear the distant ringing of a phone, the quiet murmurs of other customers, but all of it blurred into nothing against the sharp demand of my son's voice. "Do it. Right now." I lifted my eyes slowly, meeting his gaze. "And if I refuse?" He leaned closer, his breath hot with anger. "Then you will regret it." Those words struck me like lightning. My own son. The boy I had carried for 9 months, raised with patience and sacrifice, was threatening me. Not with fists, but with something far crueler, betrayal and greed. The clerk cleared her throat, trying to break the heavy silence. "Ma'am, you do not need to sign anything today if you are uncertain. These matters can wait until after you have had time to grieve." Her voice was calm, a lifeline in the storm. But my son cut it down immediately. "No," he snapped. "We are doing this now. She is of sound mind, and she agrees." "Right, Mom?" His eyes locked onto mine, daring me to contradict him. I felt a surge of fear, but beneath it, something stronger stirred. A flame. A voice inside me whispered, "This is not what your husband would have wanted. This is not how you will be treated." I placed the pen down slowly, my hand steady now. "No. I do not agree." The silence that followed was thick. My son's jaw tightened, his eyes darkened, and for a moment I thought he might lash out right there in front of everyone. Instead, he forced a smile, thin and brittle. "Mom," he said in a voice meant to sound calm, but I knew the rage boiling underneath, "you are confused. You are tired. You just buried Dad. You need me to handle things for you. Just trust me." Trust. The word burned. I remembered every night his father and I had sat at the kitchen table, balancing checkbooks, talking about saving for our children's futures, teaching them the value of honesty and hard work. Trust had been the foundation of our home. And now my own child was asking me to hand over my life's work with nothing but empty words. I shook my head. I said no. The clerk leaned back slightly, watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. Other customers glanced toward us, sensing the tension, but quickly looked away, unwilling to be caught in the storm. My son's hand slammed against the table, rattling the papers. "You do not understand. You cannot handle this alone. Dad is gone, and if you do not sign, you will lose everything." His words were sharp, meant to frighten me. And they did. For a brief moment, doubt clawed at my heart. What if he was right? What if without him I could not manage the finances, the property, the bills? But then I heard my husband's voice again in memory, "You are stronger than you think, love. Never let fear make your choices for you." I stood up, my chair scraping against the polished floor. The sound drew every eye in the room. I looked down at my son, my voice steady and clear. "If your father were here, he would be ashamed of you." His face twisted with fury. He stood too, towering over me, his shadow falling across the desk. Do not bring him into this. He is gone, and now you answer to me. The words sliced through me, colder than the grave we had left behind that morning. My heart ached, but my spine remained straight. No, I said firmly. I answer to myself. And I will not sign away my life to you. For a moment, I thought he might walk out, leave me there in a storm of anger. But instead, he leaned close, his voice low enough that only I could hear. This is not over, Mom. If you will not give it to me today, I will find another way. Do not think you can stand against me. His words were a poison, seeping into the cracks of my already broken heart. But I lifted my chin, meeting his glare with eyes that no longer wavered. I am still your mother, I whispered back. And I will not be bullied. We left the bank in silence, but the air between us was heavy with unspoken war. The drive home felt endless. Each passing street was a battlefield, each turn of the wheel a reminder of the storm gathering in my own home. I stared out the window, my mind racing. Was this who my son had become? Or had he always harbored this greed, hidden beneath smiles and dutiful gestures, waiting for the day he thought I would be too weak to resist? The house loomed ahead, the same house where I had raised him, the same house where his father had laughed, worked, and finally breathed his last. The walls that once held warmth now felt like they would hold secrets and danger. When we walked inside, the smell of food still lingered. The neighbors had left casseroles and dishes, gestures of sympathy. My daughters were in the living room, speaking softly, their eyes red from crying. They looked up when I entered, relief flooding their faces. But when they saw the look in my eyes, their relief turned to confusion. What happened? My eldest asked. Where did he take you? I opened my mouth to answer, but my son spoke first. Just the bank. I was helping her take care of Dad's accounts. The lie rolled off his tongue as easily as breath. My daughters nodded, accepting it, unaware of the venom beneath his words. I stayed silent, my heart pounding. Should I tell them? Should I expose him now, in front of everyone, and let the pieces fall where they may? But then I saw his eyes, sharp and warning. And I knew this was not the time. Not yet. That night, as the house grew quiet and the mourners left, I sat alone in the bedroom I had once shared with my husband. His clothes still hung in the closet, his watch still rested on the nightstand, and his presence lingered in every corner. I clutched his photograph, tears streaming down my face. What do I do? I whispered to the silence. The picture did not answer, but in my heart, I felt his strength. He had trusted me with our home, our family, our legacy. And I would not let our son destroy it out of greed. But even as I made that silent vow, I knew the battle was only beginning. My son would not stop. His hunger was too great. And what he did next would test me in ways I never imagined. If you thought dragging me to the bank on the day of my husband's funeral was cruel, you have not yet seen the true face of betrayal. Stay with me, because what my son planned next cut deeper than anything I had faced before, and the decision I made in that moment changed the course of my life forever. The night after the bank incident, sleep did not come easily. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint creaks of the old house as if the walls themselves knew the storm that was brewing inside them. My son's words echoed in my mind like a curse. If you will not give it to me today, I will find another way. Every shadow seemed longer, every sound louder. I held my husband's photograph against my chest, searching for strength in the silence he left behind. By morning, my resolve was firm. I would not let fear rule me. I dressed, made my bed, and prepared myself to face my children. But nothing could have prepared me for what I overheard that afternoon. I was walking down the hall when I heard voices from the kitchen. My son's low, sharp tone carried through the air, followed by another voice, his wife's. You should have pushed harder, she hissed. She is weak right now. You had the perfect chance. I tried, he snapped back. She refused. Do you think I can force her signature in front of a bank clerk? Then find another way, she pressed. We cannot wait. Everything she owns should be ours. That house, the money, the accounts. Do you really want to watch her divided among your sisters? A cold chill spread through me. It was not just my son. His wife was behind this too, whispering poison, feeding his greed. I pressed my hand against the wall, my knees trembling. These were not strangers plotting against me. These were the very people who had shared my table, eaten the food I cooked, laughed in my living room. And now they spoke of me as if I were nothing but an obstacle to be pushed aside. I will handle it, my son growled. She trusts too much. I just need to corner her at the right time. His wife's voice softened, sly and dangerous. Then corner her. Make her believe she has no choice. If she refuses again, we will show her what losing everything really means. I stepped back quietly, my breath shallow. My hand shook as I clutched the railing. Betrayal was no longer hidden beneath polite words or forced smiles. It was alive, breathing in my own home, feeding on my vulnerability. I went to my room, closing the door gently so they would not know I had heard. My reflection in the mirror startled me. My face was pale, my eyes wide with fear, but beneath that fear burned something stronger, defiance. I whispered to my reflection, they think I am weak. They think I will fold. But I will not. That evening, the atmosphere at dinner was tense. My daughters chatted quietly, trying to lighten the air, but my son and his wife spoke little, their eyes sharp, watching me like hunters watching prey. Every bite of food tasted bitter. When I set my fork down, I looked across the table directly at them. I know what you are planning, I said calmly. The room went still. My daughters froze, confused. My son's wife stiffened, her hand tightening on her glass. My son's jaw clenched, but he forced a laugh. Planning? Mom, what are you talking about? I held his gaze. You think I did not hear you this afternoon. But I did. Every word. His wife's face drained of color. My daughters looked back and forth, stunned. What words? My eldest asked. What is going on? I leaned forward, my voice steady. Your brother wants me to sign everything over to him. Today at the bank was not the first attempt. And his wife is encouraging him. They want to take everything your father and I built. Gasps filled the room. My daughters stared at their brother in disbelief. Is this true? One demanded. My son slammed his hand on the table, the plates rattling. Enough. She is lying. She is confused, grieving. Do not listen to her. But his wife's silence betrayed him. Her eyes darted nervously, unable to meet ours. For the first time, my daughter saw the cracks in his mask. For the first time, they doubted him. I rose from the table, my hands firm against the wood. I may be grieving, but I am not blind. If you want to strip me of everything, you will have to do more than whisper behind my back. You will have to face me, face your sisters, and face the memory of your father, who would never forgive this betrayal. The silence that followed was deafening. My daughters looked at me with shock, then at their brother with disappointment that cut deeper than any blade. That night, he did not speak to me. He avoided my gaze, his anger simmering beneath the surface. But I knew silence did not mean surrender. It meant plotting. And I was right. 2 days later, the first blow came. I returned from the market to find my front door unlocked. My heart pounded as I stepped inside, groceries clutched in my hands. The house was quiet, too quiet. Then I saw it, papers scattered on the coffee table, official documents I had never seen before. Property transfer forms. Account closure requests. Insurance policy amendments. My son was sitting on the couch, flipping through them calmly, as if they already belonged to him. What is this? I demanded. He looked up, his smile thin. Options, Mom. Since you refused to sign at the bank, I thought I would bring the paperwork to you. At home. Where it is easier. I dropped the groceries, my hands trembling. You cannot do this. These are not your decisions to make. Correction, he said coldly. They will be. One way or another. I realized then that this was not simply greed. This was a battle for power, and he intended to win it by wearing me down until I broke. But he had underestimated me. He thought grief made me fragile. He thought love made me blind. He thought I would fold under pressure. He was wrong. I straightened my back, meeting his gaze. You may bring all the papers you want, but my hand will never sign them. Not today. Not ever. His eyes narrowed, his smile fading. He gathered the papers slowly, deliberately, and placed them in his briefcase. Then you leave me no choice, he said. That night, I locked my door for the first time in my own home. I sat on my bed, my heart heavy but determined. The boy I had raised was gone, replaced by a man consumed by greed. But I would not be his victim. I whispered to the silence, to the memory of my husband, he may be our son, but he will not destroy me. Not while I still breathe. And in that moment, I knew this was not just a struggle over papers or property. It was a war for dignity, for respect, for the legacy of the life we had built. If you thought hearing their whispered plot was shocking, stay with me. What my son did next went beyond betrayal. It was a move so ruthless, it nearly tore our family apart forever. You will not believe what happened in the next scene. The morning sun spilled through the curtains, but instead of warmth, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I had barely slept. The sound of papers rustling in my son's briefcase haunted me all night. His words echoed in the silence, then you leave me no choice. I moved through the house carefully, every sound heightened by the weight of dread. My daughters went about their routines, but their eyes kept flicking to me, filled with quiet worry. They could sense the storm, even if they did not yet see its full strength. By midday, the doorbell rang. My heart skipped. When I opened it, a man in a gray suit stood on the porch. His hands clutched a brown envelope. Mrs. Reynolds? He asked formally. Yes. He handed me the envelope. You've been served. The words hit like a hammer. My fingers fumbled as I tore the envelope open. Inside were neatly stapled pages, cold and official. My eyes scanned the heading and my knees nearly gave way. Petition for guardianship. Filed by my son. He was asking the court to declare me unfit to manage my own affairs. He wanted legal control over my finances, my property, everything. He was not waiting for my signature anymore. He was planning to take it by force, through the law. I sank into the nearest chair, the papers trembling in my hands. My daughters rushed over, their voices a blur of questions. When I finally managed to speak, my words shook. He is trying to take everything. He is saying I cannot take care of myself. Gasps filled the room. My daughters snatched the papers, scanning them with disbelief. He cannot do this, one said, her voice sharp with anger. He cannot treat you like you are incapable. But the cold truth was written in black and white. He could. And he was trying. The phone rang minutes later. I answered with shaking hands. His voice came through, calm and cold. Now do you see, Mom? This does not have to be difficult. Just sign, and I will withdraw the petition. Refuse, and the court will decide you are too old, too fragile, too broken to handle what Dad left behind. Do you really want strangers deciding your future? The silence on the line stretched as I tried to catch my breath. I wanted to scream, to cry, but instead, I forced my voice steady. You think I am weak. But you are wrong. I will fight you. His laugh was short, bitter. Then prepare to lose. He hung up. The room spun as I lowered the phone. My daughters watched me, their faces pale with shock. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then my eldest placed her hand firmly on mine. Mom, we are with you. He will not win this. We will find a lawyer, we will fight this together. Their voices steadied me. My heart was still breaking, but it beat stronger knowing I was not alone. That night, As I sat at my desk with the petition spread before me, I whispered to my husband's photograph, "He thinks he can erase your legacy with lies. But I will not let him." Days turned into a blur of phone calls and meetings. I hired a lawyer, a kind man with sharp eyes who listened carefully as I told him everything. He shook his head in disbelief. "Your son will have to prove you are incompetent," he explained. "From what I see, you are perfectly capable. But understand, this will not be easy. He will push hard. He will dig for weaknesses. Are you ready for that?" I swallowed hard. "I am. But inside, fear not at me. What if he convinced the court? What if they believed his lies?" The first hearing came quickly. I walked into the courtroom with my daughters by my side, my lawyer at my shoulder. My son sat across the room, his wife beside him, their faces composed and confident. When he looked at me, there was no trace of the boy I once cradled in my arms. Only a stranger with cold ambition. The judge entered, and the proceedings began. My son's lawyer painted me as a grieving widow, too fragile to manage bills, too emotional to make decisions, too vulnerable to be left alone. My son nodded solemnly, pretending it pained him to take this step. He spoke of responsibility, of duty, of protecting me from myself. I wanted to scream. Every word was a knife, cutting deeper into the years of love and sacrifice I had given him. When it was my turn, my lawyer guided me gently. I spoke with as much strength as I could gather, telling the judge about the home I still maintained, the accounts I still balanced, the life I still managed on my own. I saw doubt flicker in the judge's eyes. I saw the mask on my son's face slip for just a second. But I also saw his wife lean toward him, whispering something that made his jaw tighten. And I knew this fight was far from over. After the hearing, we returned home exhausted. I collapsed into my chair, my hands trembling. My daughters surrounded me, trying to offer comfort, but my heart was heavy. This was not just about money anymore. This was about dignity. My own son had dragged me into court, trying to strip me of control over my life. Late that night, I heard the front door creak. I rose quietly, moving down the hall. In the dim light, I saw him, my son, standing in the living room. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. He turned, his face shadowed, his voice low. "Checking what still belongs to me. Soon, Mom, this will all be mine. The house, the accounts, everything. You can either give it willingly, or I will take it piece by piece." My heart pounded, but I stood tall. "You may try. But you will not break me." He stepped closer, his eyes burning with rage. "You already are broken. You just do not know it yet." That night, I locked every door and window. I sat awake until morning, clutching the photograph of my husband, whispering a vow into the darkness. "He thinks he can erase me. He thinks he can steal our life's work. But he underestimates the strength you gave me. I will not let him win. You have seen how far he is willing to go, dragging his own mother into court, whispering threats in the night. But what he did next crossed every line. Stay with me, because the betrayal that followed was darker than anything I had imagined, and the twist that came after will leave you speechless." The morning air felt heavier than usual. I had not slept. My mind raced with memories of the courtroom, of my son's calculated gaze, of the chilling words he had whispered in my living room. He was no longer the boy I had raised. He had transformed into a man driven by greed and ambition, ready to sacrifice our bond for control. My daughters tried to ease my worry. They brewed tea, prepared breakfast, and insisted we eat together. Their voices were gentle, but the shadow of fear lingered. None of us spoke much, the tension was too thick to break. The first phone call of the day shattered what little peace remained. "Mom," my son said, his voice deceptively calm. "I have spoken with the bank. Tomorrow, I expect you to sign all the paperwork. If not, I will begin freezing your accounts. You will have nothing." I stared at the phone, disbelief and rage warring inside me. How could the son I had cradled, the one I had nurtured through sleepless nights, speak to me this way? You cannot do this, I said, voice trembling with anger. This is not how a son treats his mother. He laughed softly, a sound colder than steel. This is how a man ensures his inheritance. I am giving you one last chance. Sign tomorrow, and none of this will escalate. Refuse, and you will regret it. The line went dead before I could respond. I sank into my chair, gripping the arms as if they could anchor me in reality. My daughters were silent, their faces pale. The room felt smaller, as though the walls themselves pressed in. Mom, we cannot let him intimidate you, my eldest said. We will fight this legally, but we also need a strategy. You cannot sign anything without understanding what he is planning. Her words were rational, but my heart screamed against logic. The man I loved, the one I trusted most, was using fear as a weapon. I spent hours that day reviewing every document, every bank statement, every piece of evidence my lawyer had prepared. My husband's accounts, once secure and protected, now felt like traps waiting to be sprung. Each line of financial jargon seemed to mock me, as if daring me to make a single misstep. By late afternoon, my lawyer arrived. He had read my son's latest legal maneuvers and shook his head gravely. He is playing a dangerous game, he said. By threatening to freeze accounts, he hopes to coerce you into signing. But there are ways to protect your rights. You have options, but they require patience and strategy. I clenched my fists. I will not give him anything willingly. He will not steal what my husband and I built together. That evening, I received another knock at the door. My heart jumped. When I opened it, my son stood there, holding an envelope thick with papers. I told you this was your last chance, he said. Sign now, or I will start the freeze. Do not force me to go through with it. I looked at him, the man I had raised, the one I had trusted. His eyes were hard, unreadable, filled with a merciless determination that made my stomach twist. I will not sign, I said. His expression did not change. Instead, he handed me the envelope. Then this is your choice. Remember, Mom, you could lose everything. Once he left, I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were legal papers detailing the accounts my husband had left me. It was overwhelming. Each page seemed to weigh more than the last, a physical reminder of the battle ahead. My daughters hovered behind me, trying to provide support, but the sense of betrayal was suffocating. My mind raced with possibilities. Could I outmaneuver him legally? Could I protect what was mine without compromising my dignity or my safety? I realized that the fight was no longer just financial. It was emotional. My son had crossed a line that could never be erased. The next day, I arrived at the bank under the pretense of compliance. My lawyer accompanied me. My son was already there, sitting confidently across the room. He smiled, a cold, self-satisfied smile, as if he had already won. You're here, he said casually. Good. Sign these, and we can both move on. I took a deep breath. I looked at him steadily. I am not here to sign anything without understanding it fully. You will not bully me into giving up my rights. His smile faltered for just a moment before he masked it. Suit yourself, he said. The bank manager arrived, papers in hand. My son handed him a stack of documents, explaining the urgency. The room felt tense, every glance between us filled with unspoken conflict. I could see the disbelief in the bank staff's eyes. They sensed the drama unfolding, though they could not grasp the full extent of the betrayal. I asked for copies of every document, insisting on reviewing them line by line. My son's patience began to fray. He tapped his fingers on the table, his jaw tight. This is wasting time, he said sharply. Every hour you delay, the freeze moves closer. You do not want to test me. As we went through the paperwork, my lawyer guided me. He pointed out clauses, explained legalese, and warned me of hidden traps. The tension in the room was palpable. Every move I made was scrutinized by my son, whose expression hardened with each refusal to comply. Finally, my lawyer leaned in. There is a way to protect yourself immediately, he whispered. We can place a temporary hold on your accounts, preventing any unauthorized actions. But it requires decisive action. Are you ready? I nodded, determination burning in my chest. Do it. Protect what is rightfully mine. At that moment, my son's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and I saw anger flash across his face. Without warning, he slammed the table, papers flying. You think you can outsmart me? He shouted. The room went silent. Bank employees looked on, shocked by the outburst. I stood tall, meeting his gaze. I am not afraid of you. You may have taken this far, but you will not break me. The fire in my voice seemed to surprise him. He clenched his fists and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. That night, as I sat with my daughters, the adrenaline began to fade, leaving exhaustion in its wake. But I felt a renewed sense of strength. I realized that the fight was not just about money. It was about respect, dignity, and the truth that my son could not erase. I held my husband's photograph tightly. He thinks he can win through intimidation, I whispered. But we have the law, we have our courage, and we have each other. We will not lose. You have seen how far he was willing to push, threats, ultimatums, even public intimidation at the bank. But what happened next was far darker. The twist that followed will shock you, and the betrayal will cut deeper than anything we have faced so far. Stay with me, because the next scene will reveal a shocking move he never expected, and the fight will escalate to a level I could not have imagined. The morning sun had barely touched the streets when my phone rang. My heart jumped at the sound. It was my son. Mom, we need to talk, he said, voice eerily calm. I can come over, or you can come to me. Either way, this needs to be settled today. I stared at the phone, anger and fear mixing like fire in my chest. I had already endured intimidation, threats at the bank, and his public displays of control. Now he wanted a private confrontation. My daughters insisted I stay home, but something told me I had to face him head-on. I arrived at his apartment under the pretense of peace. The door opened before I could knock. He stood there, holding a briefcase and wearing a smile that was more threat than greeting. Good morning, Mom, he said. I hope you slept well. Today is the day we finalize everything. I don't want complications, so I am giving you one last chance to cooperate. Complications? I asked, my voice shaking but firm. The only complication here is your audacity to threaten your mother. You will not intimidate me into giving up what is mine. His eyes darkened. We will see, he said. He stepped aside, and I entered. Every step felt like walking into a trap. The apartment was quiet, almost too quiet, and the air was heavy with anticipation. Once inside, he closed the door behind me. He placed the briefcase on the table and opened it. Inside were stacks of papers, legal documents, and bank statements. The sheer volume was overwhelming, but I recognized the strategy immediately. He wanted me to feel powerless, to believe that compliance was my only option. Sign these, Mom, he said. Every account, every asset, every document. Make it easy on both of us. I studied him carefully. His calm demeanor was a mask. His clenched jaw and the way he tapped his fingers betrayed impatience. He expected me to fold, and he did not anticipate that I had already begun preparing a counter-strategy. I will not sign anything until I understand every detail, I said. You cannot rush me. You cannot threaten me. This is my life, my inheritance, and I will not allow you to take it with fear. He slammed his hand on the table, making the papers jump. Do not test me, Mom. You are walking on dangerous ground. If you refuse today, the accounts will be frozen by tomorrow morning. You will lose everything. And I will make sure you regret defiance. The threat was clear, yet I refused to cower. I stood tall. I am not afraid of you. Your threats do not scare me. You will not control me, and you will not erase my husband's legacy. He smirked, a cruel expression that made my blood run cold. You are strong, I will give you that. But strength without compliance will get you nowhere. Think carefully before you refuse. Hours passed as we examined each document. My lawyer was on speakerphone, walking me through clauses, warning of hidden traps, and ensuring my son could not exploit loopholes. Each refusal to sign made him more impatient, and I could see the darkness growing in his eyes. Finally, my lawyer suggested a temporary solution. We can place a legal hold on the accounts immediately, he said. This will protect you from any unilateral actions. But you must act decisively and assert your rights. I nodded. Do it. I will not be bullied. At that precise moment, my son's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and the expression on his face shifted from confidence to fury. He slammed his hand on the briefcase, scattering papers across the floor. You think you can outmaneuver me? He shouted. You will regret this, Mom. You will regret it more than you can imagine. I met his gaze without flinching. I have already endured your games. You will not break me. You may try to intimidate me, but I am prepared. I will protect what is mine. He stormed out of the room abruptly, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed, leaving a hollow emptiness. As I gathered the scattered papers, a sudden thought struck me. What if his threats were more than words? What if he had planned something extreme, something I could not anticipate? My heart raced. I realized the stakes had escalated far beyond financial manipulation. The man who had once been my son had become a stranger capable of ruthless action. I called my daughters. Stay home, I instructed firmly. Lock all doors. Do not answer anyone. He is unpredictable. I need to know you are safe. They obeyed immediately, their fear mirrored in every word. I knew I had to be careful. My strength would not only protect me but also my family. Later that evening, I received another call. This time, the voice was different. A friend of my son's, someone I barely knew, warned me of an unexpected move. He is planning to transfer some accounts to a separate branch, the voice said. If you do not act fast, he could isolate the assets and make them unreachable for weeks. My pulse quickened. The situation had shifted. His previous threats were just the beginning. Now, he was attempting to manipulate the system itself, to make me powerless. I relayed the information to my lawyer, who immediately initiated emergency procedures. Temporary freezes, legal holds, notifications to multiple bank managers, every measure was taken to secure what was mine. That night, as I sat with my daughters reviewing the day's events, a deeper realization hit me. My son was no longer just a greedy heir. He had crossed a line. He had weaponized betrayal, fear, and manipulation to control me. The man I loved, the one I trusted implicitly, was gone. You see, Mom, my youngest said softly, this is more than money. It's about control. He wants to dominate you completely. But you are stronger than him. You have to stay vigilant. Her words resonated. I understood that victory would not come from anger alone. I needed strategy, patience, and unwavering determination. In the darkness of my study, I reviewed every legal document again, tracing each potential loophole, each vulnerability. I realized that my husband's foresight in setting up multiple safeguards had given me the advantage, but it required decisive action. I could not hesitate. Every second mattered. The phone rang again. This time, it was my son. I know what you did, he said, voice low, almost threatening. You think you can block me? You think you can stop me? You will regret this. I am coming tomorrow. And when I arrive, you will face consequences you cannot imagine. I took a deep breath. I am ready, I said. Come. I will not be intimidated. You will not steal what belongs to me. And whatever consequences you imagine, I will face them with the truth and with courage. The tension is reaching a dangerous peak. His threats are no longer just words, they are actions in motion. Tomorrow, he plans to confront me directly, and what happens next will shock you. The twist in the story is about to unfold, and the battle will escalate in ways nobody anticipated. Stay tuned, because in the next scene, the confrontation will push the limits of trust, family, and survival. The morning arrived with a weight I could almost touch. Every sound outside my house seemed amplified, every shadow more menacing. I had spent the night planning, reviewing legal protections, and ensuring my daughters were safe. My son was coming, and the tension in the air was thick enough to choke. At precisely 9, I heard the engine of his car pull up outside. My heart raced, but I stood firm. This was no longer about money alone. This was about survival, about reclaiming control from the person who had become a stranger in my son's body. The doorbell rang sharply. I took a deep breath and opened it. He stood there, briefcase in hand, eyes dark and dangerous, his calm mask gone. "Good morning, Mother," he said, his tone almost mockingly polite. "Are you ready to finalize everything?" "I am ready to protect what belongs to me," I replied, voice steady. "Come in, but understand this is no negotiation. I will not be intimidated." He stepped inside, scanning the room as if looking for weaknesses. His gaze lingered on my daughters, who sat quietly behind me. "Do not interfere," he warned. "This is between you and me. The rest of you stay out of it, or there will be consequences." I felt a surge of protective instinct. They are part of this family, part of the life we built. "You will not threaten them to get your way," I said firmly. He smirked, a cruel expression that made my stomach twist. "You have spirit," he said. "I will give you that. But spirit does not stop reality. Sign these documents today, or you will lose everything." I studied him carefully. His composure was brittle. I could see the tension in his jaw, the impatience in the twitch of his fingers. He was dangerous, but he was also human. And humans can make mistakes. We moved to the table. He opened his briefcase, revealing stacks of papers and financial statements. The sheer volume was intimidating, but I had prepared for this moment. My lawyer was on speakerphone, guiding me through each document, highlighting hidden clauses, and warning of traps. "Do not be deceived," my lawyer said firmly. "Every page is designed to manipulate and control. You must scrutinize every line." I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation. I would not be rushed. I would not be manipulated. This was my final stand, and I was ready. As we began reviewing the documents, he grew impatient. "Mom, time is running out. Sign these or face the consequences. You know what happens when you defy me." I met his gaze without fear. I know exactly what happens when a mother stands up to a son who has forgotten respect. I will not comply with threats. You may have money, but I have truth and preparation on my side. His face twisted in anger. He slammed his hand on the table, scattering papers. The sound reverberated through the room. "You are making a grave mistake," he shouted. "You will regret defiance more than you can imagine." I remained calm. "Regret is yours, if you continue this path. You are not only betraying me, you are betraying yourself." The tension escalated as we argued, each word like a spark in a room full of flammable material. Suddenly, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out an envelope, throwing it onto the table. "This is your choice," he said, his voice low and menacing. "Sign, and everything remains peaceful. Refuse, and you will see what happens when I lose patience." I picked up the envelope carefully. Inside were checks, letters of withdrawal, and documents transferring assets. He had escalated his threats into tangible action. I felt a wave of fear, but I also felt determination. This was the moment to act decisively. I called my lawyer's attention to the envelope. "We need to halt all of this immediately. Temporary freezes, legal holds, now," I commanded. As my lawyer worked, my son's patience snapped. He slammed the briefcase closed and took a step closer. "You will not humiliate me in my own home," he growled. "Sign today, or I will take drastic measures." I realized then that his threats were no longer just words. He had crossed into dangerous territory. My mind raced. Could he be planning physical intimidation? Could he attempt to isolate me completely? I held his gaze. You will not frighten me. Whatever you plan, I am ready. You may control some aspects of money, but you cannot control me, nor can you control my family. This ends today, on my terms. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. My son froze, anger flashing across his face. Who is it? He demanded. I smiled slightly. Legal reinforcement, I said. Your actions are being monitored, and any attempt to intimidate me will be documented and reported immediately. He turned pale, realizing his control was slipping. His calculated composure crumbled. You think this will stop me? He hissed. I stood taller. It already has. You underestimated me. You thought fear would win, but preparation and courage always outmatch intimidation. The confrontation escalated further when my son attempted to storm out. I followed, keeping my voice calm. You cannot escape accountability. Every action you take now is being recorded. Every threat is evidence. You cannot rewrite the truth. He paused, conflicted, for the first time showing uncertainty. I had planted doubt, and in that doubt lay power. He was not invincible. He was human. And humans can make errors under pressure. We reached the living room, where my daughters were waiting quietly. I spoke to him firmly, ensuring they could hear. Your threats end here. I will protect our family and our assets. This confrontation is your last chance to walk away without further escalation. In that moment, an unexpected twist occurred. My son's phone rang. He answered, and the voice on the other end immediately shook him. It was his business partner, reporting a sudden financial irregularity that threatened his control. Panic replaced anger in his eyes. I realized then that external forces had shifted the balance. His calculated plan was unraveling, and his desperation was visible. The man who thought he had total control was now vulnerable. I seized the moment. You see, control is never absolute, I said. Preparation, vigilance, and courage can turn the tide. You cannot win through fear alone. By the end of the day, my son had retreated, storming out of the house with a mixture of fury and fear. I was left standing with my daughters, exhausted but triumphant. The documents were secured, the legal holds were in place, and for the first time I felt a sense of safety. Yet the tension was not entirely gone. The confrontation had revealed the depth of betrayal and the lengths my son would go to seize control. I knew that this was only a temporary reprieve. Vigilance would be required for days, weeks, and perhaps months to come. This confrontation has taken the story to an entirely new level. Threats turned into actions, and a shocking twist revealed unexpected vulnerabilities. But the danger is far from over. The next scene will show how betrayal can reach beyond family, bringing in outside forces that will test courage, loyalty, and resilience. Stay tuned for a revelation that nobody saw coming. The day after the confrontation, the house felt heavier. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains seemed amplified. I couldn't shake the feeling that my son's fury had not vanished, it had only shifted to something more insidious. He may have left physically, but the danger still lingered. I sat with my daughters in the kitchen, discussing the events from the day before, reviewing what had transpired, and planning our next steps. I felt a cautious sense of triumph, but it was quickly replaced by unease. Something about the way he had left, his phone call, and the tremor in his voice suggested a larger plan. He was no longer acting recklessly. He was calculating, precise, and capable of betrayal in ways I could not predict. Mid-morning, I received an unexpected call. The voice on the line was unfamiliar, formal, and urgent. Mrs. Thompson, this is Detective Harris. We have information regarding your son's recent actions. It appears he has been attempting to manipulate accounts outside your knowledge. We need you to come to the station immediately. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. My son's actions were escalating beyond family disputes. they were now criminal. I asked questions, but the detective was terse. We need you here, in person. It concerns your safety and the integrity of your assets. I looked at my daughters. Their eyes were wide with fear and confusion. We are going, I said firmly. This is beyond negotiation. We need protection and clarity before it is too late. At the station, I was escorted into a room filled with files, photographs, and computer printouts. The detective explained that my son had been siphoning funds from joint accounts, using forged documents, and collaborating with individuals who had a vested interest in his control. I was shocked. The betrayal ran deeper than I could have imagined. My son, the boy I had raised, was orchestrating a network of deceit, not just targeting me, but undermining every foundation I had built for my family. You must understand, Detective Harris said gravely. This is no longer a simple family conflict. If he succeeds, you and your daughters could be left without recourse. He is methodical and dangerous. I clenched my fists, my heart racing. The reality of the situation was overwhelming, but clarity brought determination. I would not allow fear to paralyze me. I would act, and I would act decisively. Returning home, I began organizing every document, every piece of evidence, and every account under my control. My daughters assisted, scanning records, making copies, and ensuring that nothing was left vulnerable. The process was exhausting, but it was necessary. Every detail mattered. Every line of paper could be a shield against the storm my son was creating. As the afternoon progressed, I noticed unusual activity outside the house. A black car idled near the curb for longer than seemed necessary. I recorded the license plate and alerted the local authorities. My son was escalating his intimidation tactics. He was testing boundaries, probing for weaknesses, and I would not give him an inch. By evening, the tension reached a new level. There was a knock at the door, insistent, aggressive. I peered through the peephole. A man in a dark suit stood there, unfamiliar, holding a folder. I am here regarding your son's business affairs, he said smoothly. He asked me to retrieve documents from you. It is urgent. I studied him carefully. His demeanor was too polished, too rehearsed. It was a trap. I refused to open the door. I cannot hand anything over without legal oversight, I said firmly. Leave your contact information, and my lawyer will reach out. The man's eyes narrowed. You don't understand the situation. Your son has instructed me personally. I understand perfectly, I replied. He does not have authority to intimidate or manipulate. Leave now, or authorities will be called. The next day, a letter arrived. It was written in my son's handwriting. You are making this difficult. Consider carefully what you value. I can make all of your preparations irrelevant with a single action. I felt a surge of fear, but also clarity. The threats were escalating because he was losing control. When someone who craves dominance begins to panic, they become reckless. This was my opportunity to take the final steps to secure our family's future. I called my lawyer and explained the escalation. We need to freeze all accounts, monitor all communications, and prepare for legal action immediately, I instructed. This is now criminal. We cannot delay. Later that evening, my son appeared at my gate unexpectedly. He claimed he wanted to negotiate but brought no documents. I could see the tension in his posture. He was angry, but also anxious, his confidence shaken. Mother, you are making this harder than it has to be, he said, attempting to regain authority. You know what is at stake. Why fight me? I stepped forward, holding my head high. I am fighting because you have betrayed every value I taught you. You are risking your freedom and ours for greed and pride. You are no longer my son in action. You are my adversary. His face twisted in disbelief and fury. Adversary? You cannot treat me like this. I am treating you as the person you have become, I said. You brought this upon yourself. At that moment, my lawyer arrived with a representative from the bank. They presented documents proving that my son had attempted unauthorized withdrawals. There was a security breach, but it had been intercepted. Evidence was compiled and ready for authorities. My son's reaction was instantaneous. He grew pale, realizing that his careful plans were unraveling. The man who once believed he could control everything suddenly felt powerless. "You think this ends here?" he spat, desperation creeping into his voice. "I will find a way. You cannot stop me." "I already have," I replied firmly. "You underestimated me, and that is your mistake. Control cannot be taken through fear alone. It is earned, and today, I have earned protection for my family and our future." The confrontation concluded with him leaving, visibly shaken, aware that his actions were being monitored and that legal consequences were imminent. For the first time, I felt a sense of true security, though I knew vigilance was still required. I turned to my daughters. "This is not the end," I said calmly but firmly. "He may try again, but we are prepared. We have the law, we have evidence, and we have each other. Nothing he does can take that from us." As we sat together that night, a quiet determination settled over the house. The betrayal had been shocking, but it had revealed a strength within me that I had only glimpsed before. I realized that courage, preparation, and unity were stronger than any threat. The betrayal has gone beyond what anyone could have imagined. Hidden threats, criminal attempts, and manipulation show just how far someone can go to seize control. The next scene will reveal an unexpected ally and a shocking revelation that will turn the power dynamic completely. This story is far from over, and the stakes are higher than ever. The morning light was cold, slicing through the living room curtains in sharp lines. Despite the early hour, sleep had evaded me. The events of the past days replayed in my mind like a relentless storm, the confrontation with my son, the threats, the attempted thefts, and the rising tension that hung over the house like a dark cloud. My daughters were already awake, moving silently, aware that today could mark another pivotal moment in our fight. I brewed a pot of coffee, the aroma offering some comfort, but the anxiety in my chest refused to fade. Then the phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. I hesitated for a moment, my instincts warning me that caution was necessary. I answered, and a calm, measured voice spoke. "Mrs. Thompson, my name is Elizabeth Carson. I believe we share a common interest regarding your son. He underestimated you, and I can help you gain an advantage." I froze. My heart raced. Who was this woman? And why was she reaching out now, at a moment when everything felt dangerously unstable? Elizabeth explained that she had once been close to my son's business associates and had witnessed his manipulative strategies firsthand. Her knowledge was extensive. She had documentation of his hidden financial activities, back-channel deals, and even attempts to recruit people to undermine me and my daughters. "I have been waiting for the right moment to intervene," she said. "He trusts no one completely, and he overestimates his control. With my help, we can expose him legally, completely, and ensure your protection." I studied her words, trying to measure their truth. The timing was almost too perfect. Could she truly be trusted? Or was this another layer of my son's deception? "I need proof," I said firmly. "I cannot act on trust alone. My family's safety is at stake." Elizabeth agreed immediately. She emailed a series of files, attachments packed with transaction records, internal communications, and signed documents that confirmed my son's hidden manipulations. The evidence was staggering. It confirmed everything the detective had warned me about, and more. My son's attempts to control accounts, forge documents, and intimidate associates were far-reaching, and the realization hit me with a mixture of fear and relief. I was not imagining things. He had been planning, scheming, and lying for months. Together with Elizabeth, I began constructing a strategy. Every move would be calculated, every document verified, and every communication recorded. My daughters were involved at every stage, scanning, copying, and preparing for the eventual legal confrontation. By midday, we decided to confront one of my son's allies in person. We arranged a meeting at a neutral location, a small office where security cameras monitored every entry and exit. I felt a mix of anticipation and dread as we drove there. My daughters remained tense but resolute. The meeting was intense. The ally, a man named Marcus, initially resisted, claiming ignorance. But when confronted with documented evidence and Elizabeth's verification, he faltered. He admitted knowledge of my son's attempts to manipulate finances and intimidate family members. It wasn't personal at first, Marcus said nervously. He thought he could control everything. When he realized you were prepared, he panicked. He didn't expect anyone to stand firm. The admission shocked me. My son's arrogance had been his undoing. His belief that everyone was malleable and fearful blinded him to the reality that I had allies, knowledge, and the law firmly on my side. Returning home, I felt a surge of empowerment. The information we had gathered was enough to prevent further attempts at intimidation. I realized that my son's strategy relied on fear and isolation, and by breaking both, I had neutralized his primary advantage. Later that afternoon, there was a knock at the door. This time it was Elizabeth, holding additional documentation and a device containing audio recordings of my son's conversations with his associates. She handed it to me with a serious expression. "These recordings show everything," she explained. "They prove intent, coordination, and knowledge of the illegal actions he has undertaken. We can use them in court, and they will ensure that your son cannot claim ignorance or misinterpretation." I listened to the recordings. The sound of my son's voice, calm yet commanding, directing people to bypass legal channels and manipulate outcomes, was chilling. It was proof that he was willing to go to extreme lengths to gain control, and it reinforced the necessity of acting quickly. As evening approached, the tension in the house became almost tangible. We were preparing to file formal complaints, freeze accounts, and involve law enforcement at a higher level. Every step was meticulously planned. Every document double-checked. Then my son arrived unexpectedly at the gate. This time, he appeared different. The arrogance that had defined him in previous encounters was replaced by calculated caution. He spoke with a measured tone, attempting diplomacy, but I could sense the fear behind his words. "Mother, we don't need to escalate this further," he said. "We can find a solution privately. You don't want this to go public." I stepped forward, holding the folder with Elizabeth's documents firmly in my hands. "This is not about negotiation anymore. This is about law, protection, and accountability. Your attempts to manipulate us will end today. You underestimated me, and now the consequences are yours." My son's face turned pale. He looked at the folder, realizing the scope of evidence compiled against him. His confidence faltered. "You think you can destroy me?" he demanded, voice trembling with suppressed anger and panic. "I am not destroying you," I replied calmly. "I am protecting my family. You destroyed your own credibility. Every decision, every action, and every attempt to intimidate has been recorded and documented. You have left no room for denial." The confrontation ended with him leaving, visibly shaken, aware that the balance of power had shifted. For the first time, I realized that he truly understood the gravity of his actions. That night, as we sat together, Elizabeth provided guidance on securing long-term protection and legal strategy. My daughters and I listened intently, absorbing every detail. The revelations had been shocking, but the knowledge that we had a powerful ally and irrefutable evidence gave me a sense of control that I had never felt before. I reflected on the journey, from the shock of betrayal, the fear of manipulation, and the threat to my family, to now possessing the tools to reclaim security, dignity, and peace. The story was far from over, but we were prepared. The betrayal has been deeper than anyone could have imagined, but an unexpected ally and shocking revelations have shifted the power. The next scene will reveal a final, dramatic confrontation that will determine the ultimate fate of the family, exposing secrets that will leave viewers stunned. The morning sun hit the windows of my house, but the warmth it usually brought was absent. The air was heavy with anticipation. Today was the day everything would change. My son had finally pushed too far, and the evidence, the allies, and my own resolve had reached a breaking point. I felt the weight of every decision, every betrayal, and every moment of fear that had led us here. My daughters moved quietly around the living room, preparing documents, laptops, and phones. Every detail mattered. Every precaution was crucial. The hours of planning, the calls with Elizabeth, and the meticulous verification of every record would all come together today. I looked at them and felt a surge of pride. These were my children, strong and vigilant, standing with me against the betrayal that had shaken our family to its core. The first knock on the door came earlier than expected. I glanced at the clock. It was barely 9 in the morning. My heart raced. I signaled for silence. My son's voice followed quickly, sharp and demanding. "Mother, open the door. We need to talk before things get out of hand." I felt no fear, only determination. Slowly, I walked to the door, opening it just enough to speak without revealing the room or the preparations within. "I have nothing to discuss," I said firmly. "Everything is already in motion, and your attempts at intimidation no longer work." He laughed, a hollow sound filled with tension. "You think you can fight me? Do you realize the consequences? You are risking everything for documents and people who may not even support you." I didn't reply immediately. I let the silence speak for itself. Inside, my daughters were recording every word. Outside, my son's frustration grew. His face was pale, his composure slipping. Finally, I spoke. "Everything is documented. Every attempt, every threat, every manipulation is verified. You have no leverage, and you will face accountability if you continue." He stepped forward, trying to push past me, but I held the door steady. "You think you can intimidate me with papers and allies? You are only delaying the inevitable. I control the accounts. I control the finances. You have nothing." I felt a rush of clarity. For months, he had believed that fear and secrecy would shield him. He had underestimated my knowledge, my diligence, and my network. I opened the door fully, letting him step inside under my terms. Elizabeth had arranged for legal representatives to be on standby nearby, ready to intervene if necessary. The house was a fortress of strategy. Every recording, every document, and every prepared witness gave me an unshakable position. My son's arrogance began to crumble as I presented the first set of documents. He glanced at the files, his eyes widening with recognition and shock. "This is impossible," he stammered. "How did you get all this?" "I prepared for this," I said steadily. "I refuse to allow your manipulation to succeed. Every step you took has been tracked and verified. You cannot claim ignorance." The confrontation escalated quickly. My son tried to deflect, claiming that documents were falsified, recordings edited, and testimonies coerced. I handed him a device containing the original audio files and their timestamps, verified by third-party experts. He hesitated, realizing that he could not dispute the evidence. Anger replaced his fear, but it was tempered by the knowledge that the consequences were unavoidable. "You think you've won?" he demanded, voice shaking with a mixture of rage and desperation. "I am your son. You cannot ruin me." I looked at him steadily, the calmness in my voice a stark contrast to his trembling. "You may be my son, but you are not above accountability. Your actions have consequences, and you cannot manipulate the truth any longer." Then came the twist I had anticipated. I revealed a secret Elizabeth had uncovered. My son had been attempting to secretly transfer ownership of our family assets under aliases and accounts I had never known about. The timing was crucial. The legal documents I presented invalidated every move he had made. His face turned pale. The shock was genuine this time. "No, this isn't possible," he whispered, staring at the proof. "Yes, it is," I said. "Every action you attempted has been anticipated, documented, and neutralized. Your control over our family assets is over. You underestimated me, and that mistake will cost you everything." The room fell silent. My daughters stood beside me, unwavering, ready for whatever came next. My son's breathing grew erratic. He realized that his power had evaporated, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. I handed him a final document, a statement detailing his attempts to manipulate and intimidate family members, accompanied by notarized evidence. "Sign this acknowledgement," I said. "It confirms the cessation of your claims and ensures no further attempts to interfere. This is your last chance to resolve things without escalation." He stared at the paper, hesitation and fear battling with his pride. The tension was palpable. Finally, with a trembling hand, he signed. Elizabeth arrived at the house moments later, bringing verification of the legal filing. The process was complete. My son's attempts to reclaim power were permanently neutralized. Justice had been achieved, not through violence or confrontation, but through meticulous planning, evidence, and unwavering resolve. As my son left the house, defeated and shaken, I felt a profound sense of relief. The betrayal had been deep, the fight exhausting, but the outcome was undeniable. My daughters and I had reclaimed security, dignity, and peace. That night, as we sat together, reflecting on the ordeal, I realized how far we had come. From fear and intimidation to preparation, discovery, and victory, every moment had taught me the power of perseverance and the necessity of standing firm. The final confrontation exposed truths that had been hidden for months, revealing manipulation, deceit, and betrayal at the highest level. But it also showed that preparation, courage, and strategic alliances can overturn the most formidable threats. This story is a reminder, no matter how powerful or intimidating someone may appear, knowledge, evidence, and unity can reclaim control and protect what is truly yours. The house was quiet, but the silence no longer felt heavy. It was calm, deliberate, and earned. I walked through the rooms, feeling the weight of the past weeks, the betrayals, the manipulations, the fear, and the tension. Every step reminded me of the turmoil my son's actions had caused, and yet, it also reminded me of the strength I had discovered within myself. For so long, I had trusted, forgiven, and believed that love alone could protect us. But love had limits when met with deceit and greed. Today, those limits had been tested, and today, they had been reinforced with evidence, preparation, and courage. My son's betrayal had shaken me to my core, yet it had also awakened a force I didn't know I possessed. Sitting in the living room, surrounded by my daughters, I reflected on everything. The fight had not been about money or property alone. It had been about dignity, respect, and the refusal to let fear dominate our lives. Every document we prepared, every call we made, and every precaution we took had not only protected our family but had also affirmed that standing firm in truth was more powerful than any manipulation. I remembered the first day after my husband's funeral, when my son had driven me to the bank and demanded that I sign everything over. My heart had frozen, and panic had threatened to overwhelm me. But now, looking back, I realized that moment had been the turning point. It had forced me to see clearly, to act decisively, and to reclaim control before it was too late. The journey had been exhausting. Every meeting, every confrontation, every late-night verification had pushed me to my limits. There had been tears, doubts, and moments of fear. But those same moments had also taught me resilience, focus, and the unwavering power of preparedness. The confrontation with my son had ended, but the lessons remained. Trust is earned, not assumed. Family bonds can be fragile when respect is absent. And no amount of manipulation can overcome the truth when it is backed by evidence and resolve. I realized that forgiveness was no longer about letting go of accountability. It was about releasing fear and reclaiming life on my own terms. I forgave myself for the moments of doubt, and I forgave my children for any past mistakes. But I did not forgive deceit and exploitation. That line had been drawn clearly, with no ambiguity. As I looked around the house, I felt a sense of renewal. The walls that had once felt like witnesses to betrayal now stood as silent monuments to resilience and vigilance. My daughters and I had faced fear together, and together, we had triumphed. The bonds we had strengthened in the process were unbreakable. The epilogue of our story was not just about winning a battle. It was about discovering inner strength, claiming justice, and refusing to let fear dictate life's choices. It was about understanding that power is not always in dominance but often in preparation, clarity, and courage. To anyone listening, reading, or watching this story, know this: you are stronger than you believe. You have the right to protect what is yours, to stand firm in the face of betrayal, and to reclaim dignity no matter the odds. Prepare, document, and act decisively. Your courage can turn fear into empowerment, chaos into clarity, and manipulation into accountability. As for me, the journey has just begun. The peace I now feel is hard-earned, and it is a reminder that life's most profound lessons are often forged in the crucible of challenge. My son's betrayal was a storm, but it did not destroy me. It revealed my strength and the unwavering power of truth. We live on, vigilant yet free, aware of the past but unafraid of the future. And in that awareness, I find not only justice but also hope, resilience, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that I, and my family, will never be controlled by fear again. This is not just my story. It is a story for anyone who has felt powerless, threatened, or betrayed. Take control, gather your evidence, trust your instincts, and never let fear decide your future. Victory is possible, and justice is achievable when you refuse to surrender to manipulation. Life continues. We continue. Stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever comes next.